Welcome to the Copper State Marching Podcast, sponsored by the Arizona Marching Band Association, AZMBA. My name is Martin Hebda.
And I'm Matt Kozacek. I'm the president of Arizona Marching Band Association and band director at Campo Verde High School. Today, we're going to be chatting a little bit about I&E. Martin, one of my favorite things.
It's one of my favorite too. I have so many students that participate in this. I think last year I had more than a third of the band that went to the I&E festival.
Yeah, you definitely set the record for the number of entries every year. I was watching the entries come in last year, and I was like, man, I am slacking, and I had a decent number, but you always have a ton of kids, and so shout out to the CG kiddos for jumping on and being brave enough to to perform, because it is not easy to get in front of your peers, get in front of people, and play solos or small ensembles. There's so much individual accountability, but what's so cool is just the end product, right?
Well, such an opportunity for growth. And I've had students that have gone and just hit it a home run. And I've had students that have gone and they felt like they didn't have a really good run, but I've never really had students that wish they didn't do it.
Yeah, actually, I would have to agree with that. Like, anybody that's ever done it has been really excited about it. So today we're going to chat about I&E, how to get your kids interested and excited, how to direct them and guide them. I mean, band directors are spinning so many plates already that I think sometimes it's a little bit like, oh, that's one more thing, I just can't do it. And that, we're going to chat about how you can do it and make it really easy for your kids to participate. We have Jeff Quamo here today, so that's going to be really fun. I love that guy. But yeah, I think I&E is one of my favorite things that we do in our circuit. So
yeah, Jeff Quamo, definitely one of the masters. He has been the AMEA Solo and Ensemble chair for over a decade. So bringing his experience, he's a really regular judge for us for both I&E and on the field. So we're really excited to bring him on. And before we bring him on, how about we hear from our sponsors? AZMBA would like to thank our sponsors: the Academy Drum and Bugle Corps, Arizona Cardinals Football Club, The Band Shop, Bravwell Video Creations, Cut Time, Encore Gifts, Instrumental Music Center, Mac Pack, Milano's Music, Music Celebrations International, Music for All, MVP Apparel, Pieces of Flair, schoolfund.org, Show Dots, UDB, Uplifting Promotions, Vic Firth, and Yamaha. Thank you for supporting AZMBA. And we welcome to the podcast our guest, Jeff Quamo, one of the AZMBA top I&E judges. Thank you for coming on.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Jeff, it's great to have you. Man, you've been so involved with the I&E, but also, I mean, just in general with adjudicating and really giving back to the circuit. So first of all, thank you for all of your service, for all of your dedication to the marching arts. We really appreciate it. Why don't you just start out? Let us know, what is I&E? What does it stand for? And what's cool about it?
Sure. Well, I&E individual and ensemble components. I've assisted with AMEA for a decade now in their solo ensemble capacity. I've always enjoyed getting a chance to network with other directors and getting a chance to learn new repertoire. But one thing with that is that there's certain types of music and repertoire that they deem appropriate. So the thing that I have really appreciated about how AZMBA has been running this component is it offers students an opportunity to utilize pop music, Broadway tunes, arrangements of their own. And I think, to me, having adjudicated in that component over the past few years, I think some of the most memorable ones have been entries where kids have had the chance to kind of have their own freedom and creativity. Maybe just to name a few off the top of my head, I remember particularly there was a brass quintet from Williamsfield that did an arrangement of Freak by Radiohead. And it was fantastic. It was well done. It was well done arrangement that the kids did themselves. It was played very well. And where else did they get an opportunity to perform something like that? That was memorable to me. Um, Also, there was a student, Matt, we had kind of talked a little bit beforehand about that student that came in and started playing Take Five, and there was a room full of kids there, and it turned into like a jam session and just a jazz improv lesson. It was just a lot of fun. When we do the I&E components, every entry has like a 10-minute span. So if they do like a 5-minute performance, then there's the opportunity for like a 5-minute mini lesson. And what I think has been really cool about the structure and the format that you guys offer is that it's kind of like a masterclass opportunity in a fishbowl. It's one of the few opportunities that I'm aware of from an educational standpoint where the kids can perform and have their families be there, have their friends come on in, especially in marching season. You get the marching bands are there, but they're all coming on in to support. Last year when I adjudicated at MCC, in that one area where they had those risers, they were filled. Families were there. I remember in particular there was a saxophone player, and he gave approval to use his name here. I just want to give a shout out to Jacob Robenstein from I think it was Yonkford High School. I think the director there is Freddie Ochoa. He came in and he did the Boza aria, and the place was absolutely packed. Like he had family there, he had friends there, he had people that he had kind of networked with that were all there. It was cool. It was just a nice vibe. So I think the I&E component where kids get a chance to perform, have a 10-minute window, get a chance for a little mini lesson. You get the camaraderie of having all your friends and supporters and directors there in the room with you. It's just a nice educational experience and a good vibe. So
Yeah.
that answers your question.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And getting an opportunity to get feedback from you. I mean, you're a master educator, and anytime that I know that you're on a judge's panel, I'm excited for my students to come and get feedback from you. I like the activity because it's usually in the morning, right? And I'll send a whole bus of students early. I think last year I had 35, 40 students that went ahead early and performed. And unfortunately, I'm coming a little bit later with the band, but I send them up and I have parents that go. I have parents that are taking videos, they're taking photos because we have, a scrapbook of some of those things as well. And the students all run around and support each other. They've got a list of times because they all want to hear each other perform. And they want to hear other students perform too, so they're supporting their own school and they're supporting other schools. And I just think it's such a healthy camaraderie that we're building.
Yeah, I mean the goal was really when we started it was let's offer the opportunity, and I got to give a little bit of a shout out. And the idea of this I&E came actually from Bill Meldrum, and when he was at Agua Fria High School, I remember going to a show that he hosted, and he had an individual and ensemble component to it. And my kids, we went out there with Basha when I was at Basha, and had a great time, and they performed, and I was like, this is really cool about this one show. This one show that he did had that I&E component. So when we were, putting together AZMBA, and a couple years in, as things were like, going really well and we were growing, we're like, we should make that a thing for everybody, because that was so fun for the kids. Like you're saying, they're sitting around supporting each other. The stands are packed. Or like the bleachers, if it's in a gymnasium, are full. The parents are so proud because it's like, their kids are performing by themselves, and they get a chance to hear them play by themselves. So yeah, it's definitely a really positive thing that's been going on. One of the things that I like is that there's really no restrictions, even instrumentation wise. Like normally if you go to solo ensemble, it's pretty traditional, as Jeff was saying. Like you have to play a certain literature or quintet music or quartet music. That's fairly normal. And last year, we had a group. I think we had a bass, a trombone, a saxophone. Like these kids, they're just like, can we put together a group and jam and have a good time? I'm like, yeah, sure, go ahead, have fun. There's no rules, and if they're like, well, what do we play? Well, look around. Go on Pepper. I doubt that'll be something for your instrument makeup, but maybe there'll be something where you can transpose some parts and teach them about how to change, a part to a different key or whatever, and make it work, and if it's not the most, I guess you would say, like, orchestrated, the best orchestrated thing in the world, it's okay.
But it'll get better the next time they do it. It's such an
Absolutely.
excellent learning opportunity. I've helped a lot of students with their arrangements. The other thing is I always have young students, like we're talking freshmen, they're like, okay, let's do it. They're nervous, they don't feel prepared, but they all come back as a sophomore. And as a sophomore, it's prepared, like they're ready. They're ready, and
Mhm.
they still have a couple more years to do it. So that's awesome. I think there is a restriction. If you're a drummer, you can't play with a recording. You know how there's like the drumming thing where they'll have like
Mhm.
a modern tune playing and they play their beats to it. I
Yeah.
think at least a few years ago, I had a student that wanted to do that, and I think that was told no. But I mean, that if that's your only restriction,
Yeah.
our INEs this year, we've got them on October 3rd. It's at MCC and at Flowing Wells, and it's in the morning, the INE portion of it, and then there's a performance later in the day that the whole band, that many bands are going to be at. The band doesn't have to be at the night performance for students to attend the INE. I think this happened to you last year, Matt, and it's happening to me this year that date falls on our homecoming dance. So I'm not taking the band to a competition, but I'm taking students to the INE.
Yeah.
And man, if I told students they couldn't do the INE, they would be upset with me. They
Yeah.
would not
Yeah.
like it. So I know that we don't know the exact structure yet because we haven't gotten, all the registrations. Actually, we haven't done any registrations yet. But Jeff, can you kind of talk to us about, okay, here are some of the rooms that we have and some of the different groups that, do we have solos? Do we have ensembles? Do we have woodwinds, brass? Where do we kind of put people?
Sure. In my experience, both as a director and adjudicating it, it's been individualized based on the site and based on the entries for that year. So I know typically there's been like a percussion room. Last year at MCC, they had the guard outside in a nice little staged area. They had a good time with that. That's one component that we haven't talked about yet is color guard. And sometimes that's, we get the percussion elements, we get the woodwind, we get the brass. But a lot of times people forget, hey, there's color guard that can do both solo as well as ensemble components. And there's been some really, really great experiences that
Mhm.
have been submitted there. To finish your question about just the layout, I remember one year there were so many entries that they had a woodwind and a brass room. Um, Quite often, woodwind and brass would be combined together, and we'll get solos and ensembles together, and just one group right after another, and kids can hang and watch each other. Sometimes group would finish, and then they just go right up into the stands and just kind of, or the seats, and just kind of wait and listen for some of the other groups. But like I said before, the format basically 10-minute intervals. And as far as the length, I think this is something that might be worth mentioning. Um, I've adjudicated some performances where it's only like 2 minutes long. And it's cool because then we get to do like an 8-minute mini masterclass and work with the kid on what they were presenting. And especially the fact that we're talking October 3rd, early in the season, relatively early in the school year. For many schools, it's just right around the end of their first quarter. It makes for a perfect time frame to have, like, maybe in your program, you're doing a chamber music component or a project. Maybe you have a combined concert band, hypothetically. I wasn't really playing this one out, but just shooting from the hip on this one. A way to try to integrate this into your programs could be if you say, for example, you've got a combined concert band, grades 9 through 12. Early in the year, how do you reach that dichotomy of engaging the younger kids, but yet not boring the upperclassmen if you have a combined group? And you could have some of the upperclassmen formulate some of their chamber groups and then maybe do that for end of first quarter projects. I know some directors that get a chance on their first couple of concerts of the school year where they actually have like a little featured small ensemble component to their staged concerts. I think the timing of where INA is offered this year, I think it's perfect to lend itself to directors that maybe are looking for that first quarter project and give kids a chance to not only work on their arrangements and collaboratively work together, but then get a chance to perform it in a very appreciative environment. One thing that we haven't talked about yet, speaking of appreciative environments, one thing that makes Tier 3 a very memorable opportunity for kids at the AMEA Solo Ensemble Festival is the built-in audience. Those that get selected to do the Tier 3 recital at Allstate, they get a chance to perform in a full auditorium with all the directors, all of the students that are in the Allstate choir, Allstate band, Allstate orchestra. It's a great scene for those kids, very memorable. And when you've had the opportunity at AZNBA for kids to perform at class championships, I know it adds a little bit sometimes to the time frame. I know you got that deliberation period where you want to make sure that all the recaps are worked out and that everything, all the numbers matched up, and things happen sometimes on Comp Suite, and you want to make sure all that. So you have like a 15 or 20-minute deliberation period between the last group and when you're going to start the awards. It's a perfect time frame to give those kids a platform in front of an appreciative audience. I've had 3 groups that have performed at state championships as a director over the years. I had a sax quartet that did the Heiner Vibrani Ur in Africa one time. Had a percussion group do Bella Fleck, Big Country. And a couple of years ago, we had a senior, Devin Manassan, who did a color guard component. And every single one of those kids came back just so hyped up about it. It felt so cool to have such an appreciative audience, stadium packed on both sides, under the lights. It's a great thing what you guys are providing with AZNBA and giving those kids a platform to get a chance to perform at class championships. And it definitely, it makes it different, and it makes it memorable for kids, and it's a great experience.
Yeah. I wanted to go back to something you said. The color guard at MCC last year was outside, but I will give you the good news that John Davenport has reserved this stage of the theater there for color guard. So that'll be a really great thing for them. I know last year they couldn't do it because there was like a musical that was happening and they were rehearsing and stuff. But this year it works out to be at a good time where guard's going to be able to be on stage. So I went ahead and walked the site with John recently. He got some feedback about some things to make a little bit better at MCC, but yeah, it's going to be really cool being able to be on stage. One of the other things that we work to fix and make a little bit better, just so everybody knows, is the awards at the end of the night. And I know that that's something where like, man, that was just really long and everything. So we've made some adjustments. The board looked at that. It came up in our meetings and such, and advisory meetings about, can we look at the length of INE awards? And, philosophically, we want to reward the students. Like, we want to make sure that they know that they were appreciated, but we can speed through things a little bit better. And we can announce placements instead of just placements and scores. And you would be amazed at how much just taking out, scores instead of just placements will save a ton of time. So we heard the feedback and we're working on it. So.
Yeah, and the students love the recognition as well. I've had several students that have been asked to perform at class championships, and it's such an honor to tell them that they've been selected because they just light up. They are so excited. And then of course the parents, they just can't get enough of that. One thing I think is pretty cool is the growth of piano. I remember early on, I always seem to have a piano player that wants to play, and they play a different instrument, but also piano. And it used to be they would be put in with percussion and the mallet section, and now they actually have a piano division, which is great. I think last year I had 4 piano students go, and what an opportunity, such an opportunity. So I think that's really cool, and just seeing how it's grown, and we see a need and we just go with it.
One of the things I want to bring up is, like, how do you approach this with your programs? And what do you do with your programs to prepare the students? How do you introduce it? How do you teach it at all? Do you let them be, their own teachers? Do you create? At what point do you step in? So, Jeff, what do you do about that?
Well, I've had years where, given the personnel and given the scheduling, it just works out to have that first concert where we have, kind of like what I had alluded to before, a chamber music component. I'll let the kids, I'll give them some pieces to kind of select from, but ultimately I'll let them choose of the 3 or 4 that I give them. And let them just kind of hone in on what I think might be appropriate for them to kind of work up and have some fun with it. Sometimes kids will bring a tune to me and they'll say, hey, I'd really like to arrange this. What do you think? And I'll tell you, I'll never say no to that. For a kid that wants to do their own arrangement, learn about transposition and learn about effective voice leading and try to have a better understanding of harmonies. And it's cool. It's like it's an accidental AP music theory course. And they get to do the projects on their own, and it's all intrinsically motivated because they're picking out their own stuff. So sometimes it's interesting to see where kids will go with it when you let them open their own door. I know some directors have said, and this is just over the years, some directors that say, I just don't know if I really have the time for it. One year I was asked to do a presentation at AMEA conference about the Solo Ensemble Festival. And a lot of directors hung around afterwards and asked about how do I implement this in the programs? I don't know if I have the time for it. And I said, I personally have had some success with kids. You just present it, you just put it out there and you see where they want to go with it. And one director in particular said, the very next year I did that. And I was so surprised at when the kids were energized and felt like it was their own and they had ownership over it, what they brought to the table. And not everything quite was to the level of expectation, but the fact that these kids were just excited about doing it and getting together with their friends, that a lot of the projects ended up pleasantly surprising the director. So I don't think there's anything wrong with just encouraging them and telling them, hey, band rooms are open during your lunches, practice rooms are open during your lunches. After school, I'm available on these days at these times before marching band rehearsal or things like that. If you want to come on in and have the opportunity, sure. When you're ready and you have something for me, kids can record something and load it up on Google Classroom or share it with you that way. So at least you can get a chance to give a little bit of feedback. I know that when I've structured it with my kids, I'll have a clipboard, and on the clipboard, I'll have, okay, this tune and this tune and this tune. For this quarter, this is what you're working on. And I just want to see progress. And I'll tell the kids, look, tomorrow I'm going to work with, when we do the chamber music component, or maybe in a week, I only have a chance to touch on it twice. You guys are doing one day, you're going to break into chamber groups, and I'm going to make the rounds, and I'm going to spend maybe like 6 or 7 minutes with each one of you. Or maybe, hey, on the first round of rotations this week, I'm going to work with this group and this group. Next week's rotations, I'm going to work with this group and this group. However, using that clipboard, here's your level of accountability. Here's where you're supposed to be going. So-called lesson plan. So at least you can have something tangible in front of them so they go, oh, we were responsible for working on ensemble vertical cohesiveness for, say, for example, the first 32 measures. Or maybe a multi-movement work and you're saying, hey, first movement, let's see how we can do with it. And at least then the kids have a systems of checks and balances, but they're really student-led. And especially with a lot of the vernacular of music ed and where it's kind of trending nowadays, I mean, you can say it's kind of student-driven, and we are merely facilitators to that. Admin, in my experience, are becoming a lot more amicable to those types of projects. And I've seen a lot of directors have success with formats like that. So it doesn't have to be as daunting or as much work sometimes as directors fear it might be.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Martin, what about you? Do you take a similar approach? Or
I do, and I agree. There's a lot of people, a lot of directors think it's going to be a lot more work than it really is on them. And you can, I mean, that's not saying you just do nothing, but letting the students take the charge, it'll really surprise you. So when we get close to registering, I put together a little video, a little collage of our students and their performances they've done from the previous year. So they see just a quick slideshow, and it's sometimes I'll have some videos of them playing, and they'll see their classmates in their uniform. They're working on this, and then you see them like all getting ready for the awards, and it's like this really big and exciting, fun thing. And they're like, man, I want to be a part of that. I was reaching out today just to see what kind of promo videos we have, through AZMBA, and I'm sure we'll have another one. But like, there's cool things out there. It's hard not to want to get involved when you see those things. And then I say, all right, if you're interested, get your group together and come and sign up with me. And then when they say they want to do something, I ask them a couple questions. Okay, what are you doing? Who are you doing? And sometimes they say we have a piece, or they're looking for a piece. I give them some guidance. There are a lot of times that they'll come to me with something, and I will help. Like Jeff was saying, it's like a little music theory class, right? An arrangement class. I help out with some things, give them suggestions. Sometimes it's even like this group, we want to do this, but we don't know, this person could play this person can play this. You just give them feedback, and it's like they're doing homework that they want to do, you know. And it's not even homework. They're just so involved with it. It's pretty cool. Leading up to the actual I&E performance, I like to give my students an opportunity to perform it for each other, whether it be in class. I used to do it like at the end of a marching band rehearsal. I'd be like, all right, we're getting ready to go I&E, and, you know, we're going to have everybody perform. It would take too long. You know, I can't do it at that point. We'd be there until 10:30 at night. But I do take class time and I say, here's an opportunity. Let's play it for everybody. If you can play it here in front of all of your peers, you're going to have a better shot to do it when you're at the I&E. So it's absolutely fantastic. And those are just some of the steps that I do. What do you do with your
lunchtime recitals?
What's that?
Sorry about that. Do you ever do lunchtime recitals?
I don't. That's a pretty cool idea.
That's one thing that's worked well for some directors. I know not only for I&E prep, but also for like tier 2 prep when they have to, like, for the AMEA solo ensemble competition. I know some directors have had success with that. Some schedules at some schools have what's built in as like a advisory or a character counts kind of component, where maybe they have that half-hour block, maybe once every other week or once a week or something like that, where kids commonly will go to clubs. But that's also an opportunity. I know it's called different things at different schools. Matt, do you have anything like that? Martin, do you have anything in your schedule?
Yeah, we have advisory. It's typically just like so the way it's structured at Campo is like it's my same kids as my 3rd hour class. So it's like wind ensemble kids that are in there. So some of them could do it there. I think, like you're saying, just get creative about how you can get them a chance to perform before they actually go perform is really helpful to them. Like you said, lunchtime recitals, do it at advisory. You can, you know, we have sectionals after school on Tuesdays. A lot of times we'll build in time there. Sometimes we have a Saturday rehearsal and it's like, you know, it's going to be hot in September. So maybe in the very hot part of the day, you schedule the I&E, the I&E block where you're going to just run through some I&E stuff with the kids. So
we've done that too.
I think it's just be creative about a way to get them a chance to perform for their peers before they go perform for everybody else. Similarly, like to you guys, you know, I like to let them run a lot of it. It really isn't that much time for me. I just say, who wants to do it, promote it. And then they decide if they want to, and I let them just go with it. And sometimes I think every now and then there'll be a piece of me that goes, you know, when I hear some of the performances, I'm like, oh, I probably should have stepped in a little bit earlier and helped. But then I kind of step back and go, no, I don't think I need to do that. I think it's so good for them to have to navigate some of those issues themselves and, you know, figure it out, right? Like, you don't always have to give the answers to everybody. So if you're a director that's out there is like, I just don't have time for it. You're, you know, listening to the king of who wants to do it and then let him run with it, you know, and it's really not a ton of time for you. So,
you know, the old adage is for the me or for the we. Sometimes as a director, it's hard because we want to make sure that we're putting out a good product to model for the kids and for our program and for our parents. But there's no denying the educational and musical benefits of taking that third clarinet player that doesn't really hear themselves all that often and putting them in a quartet where they're holding their own voice, even if it's a bunch of half notes, you know. It's just getting the level of independent ownership over your parts. It's everything that you can do in the chamber music components will benefit the ensembles. And if you just remind yourself of that, even if the kids have that opportunity for the project, and if their project on their own accord does not quite rise to certain levels of performance, you know, we talk about the level of awareness and perception versus the level of performance level. And sometimes this is a great growing block for kids to learn how to improve in their level of awareness and performance because they really don't know what good is until they explore and discover it sometimes for themselves. They get excited about checking out other recordings and, oh, I didn't realize that the piece we're working on, there was a recording of this, and I listened to it, and then I realized I need to work on this now because now I'm aware of how that can be done. So now then they start to practice and increase their level of perception until they learn, hey, there's something new, and then they try to build their way up. So I think from that component, the benefits that we get out of the enhanced level of musical awareness for our kids in the experience of chamber music is invaluable. So
agreed.
I'll tell you what, You bringing up like advisory hour recitals just put a big old bug in my ear, and I'm just playing. Like, I love that idea. I just think
Mhm.
that's going to be cool. Maybe at my school, I'm going to be like, why don't we do a quarterly advisory hour, or maybe 1 week a quarter or something like that, and have people. I just think that's the coolest thing. It makes me think of college. Did you have like lunchtime, like Friday? They would do, it was like in Holsclaw Hall at U of A. It would be an afternoon performance or something like, I don't even know what it was called, but like I just remember that being a thing, an opportunity to play.
Yeah, and I think there was like, I mean, there was just music happening all the time, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of is almost cool to imitate that a bit for our kids within our programs of like, you can have these little miniature recitals. It doesn't have to be a concert, it doesn't have to be all, don't have to dress up or nice, whatever, just show up and play your instrument and have fun together. So
You
Yeah.
know, another thing to consider is that there's some instruments that don't have built as many built-in performance opportunities or ensemble opportunities. You hit it right on the head when you talked about pianos. Um, Piano students, I can tell you that every year it's more and more impressive with the level of video entries that are submitted for tier two for piano solos. Because some of them are just fantastic. And unfortunately, we only are limited with tier three being a certain amount of time frame that we get a chance to present. And the amount of strong entries that when the judging committee and the judging panel kind of look at the videos and they have to decide what's the top piano entry on the year. Other ones that don't get acknowledged are definitely they warrant the opportunity and the acknowledgement. Um, and I think finding opportunities for these unique recital moments. Each year, with I don't know if you guys are teaching guitar, but I'm teaching a couple sections of guitar each year. I do a guitar recital in the spring, and I just send it out to teachers, and I say, hey, in the afternoon, one day we're going to have, if you want to bring your classes down, please feel free. And it's just built great camaraderie with teachers saying, I'll give flyers to the kids and they'll hand them out to their teachers. And then they'll say, oh, I've got a student that's playing on the guitar recital. And maybe they're doing just a simple little quartet arrangement. But just seeing teachers bring their classes in just so that they can hear the guitar recital. So kids that play guitar, kids that play piano, they don't really have that many opportunities. I mean, how many schools have the luxury of a guitar ensemble?
yeah.
Not as many. And how many of these piano students are fantastic closet musicians where they never get a chance to be featured? So having that opportunity, that's great to hear. I didn't realize that you guys were having the piano component for this year. That's
Yeah.
great.
So Jeff, your daughter has participated in INE. Why don't you give us couple, like, from a student perspective? I know you've talked to her about it and gotten some feedback a little bit about like what did she like about INE? What did she gain from it? What, maybe some like what was a reason that she was like, oh, I don't know if I should do that or not, and what kind of pushed her over the hill? Besides you pushing her, of course, but what else?
Let's get one thing straight. I can't do that with her. All right. I don't know how you guys, I know you guys have fantastic relationships with your kids and they've been very receptive. And I see the postings and I just, you guys have such a great rapport and experience. With my daughter from the tower, I got to lean down and cover up the microphone and tell our color guard tech, hey, tell Jordan she's on the wrong side of the 40, or something like that. And they got to do it because I can't give the direction like that. My daughter's, she's in dance, she's in piano, she's in choir, and she has an interest in doing jazz piano. But of all things, I say, hey, honey, I can help you out with some chord voicings, and she's like, no, Dad, I want. There's been a certain level of independence and just appreciation of self-discovery for her.
Mm-hmm.
And with regards to her involvement with INE over the years, I think she's really relished the opportunity that I just stepped back, even though I'm her director and her father. I just step back and say, hey, have you picked up music yet? And usually I'll get, yeah, I got some. Oh, what do you think of you doing? I'll think about it. And she doesn't want to tell me because in some respects to her, I kind of have grown to accept that she enjoys the surprise component of it.
Mm-hmm.
We had Tony out one year. Those of you that don't know Tony Cristofano, who's listening out there, Tony's a great guy. Tony was kind enough, he was in town and he said, oh, I could stop by and I could help clinic some of your color guide students. And he got a chance to work with some of them. And even if they weren't finished products, he was just very great in what he had to offer and just talk to the kids about. And one of the things that my daughter really found memorable was that her own choreography, her choosing of the music, artistically thinking, what am I doing visually that's lining up with the lyrical content of the song, or musically, what can I do rhythmically to align up with certain things? Is there a triplet hit that I can visually articulate or something like that? It was cool hearing Tony tell me some of those conversations and seeing what level of awareness it's kind of had. So for my own daughter, it's her own discovery process. And I think that's part of the beauty of the INE is that for directors to have maybe the courage to just let their kids and just, value the process of what the kids will get out of it from intrinsically motivating themselves and wanting to do it. I think there's value in that. So my daughter's enjoyed it. She's done the solo component, both a freshman year and a sophomore year. Last year, she did a duo with a good friend. They choreographed a fun number, and they did it all on their own. So, and she's already excited about doing it this year. So I think, as with all of our programs, if you can be on a campus and say, our marching band has a 96% retention rate from students that did the previous year to this year, I think that speaks magnitude as to what the program has to offer, even though it's a hard, long season and involves a lot of time commitment. For me to see from the color guard component here, and this is my third year at Chandler, and I got kids that have wanted to do it each year, and they're excited already about doing it. They've already picked out their music. They're starting their choreography for it. It's validating to me to see that there's that much interest in the process. So,
yeah, that's awesome. My son has done it as well. He's graduated a couple of years ago, but he did it 3 years. He did it his sophomore, junior, and senior year. Didn't do it his freshman year. I proposed it to him, and he said no, thank you. He's a percussionist, and percussion, like color guard, they actually don't look for a piece necessarily to play. He's a battery member. They create it. They create their music that they're playing. The color guard's creating their choreography. And Jeff, like you said, they're trying to figure out, what do I do to go in with this music? How do you make a musical phrase? That's so valuable. That's so valuable. And also they tend to appreciate what their color guard instructor's doing with the choreography a little bit more, having done that. My son did, I think his sophomore and junior year, he did a solo, he did a snare solo. And then his senior year, he did a snare duet with one of his buddies, and they just seeing him practice and practice and practice. And he actually got the opportunity to do the championships performance with his buddy on that snare duet, and just seeing the pride and just how, it's, well, for a father, but also a director, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I've learned a ton tonight from talking with you guys. I'm really looking forward to INE again. Jeff, again, thank you so much for just everything that you've been involved with in helping us develop this program, adjudicating. My students love hearing your tapes because you're always so positive. They're like, oh yeah, we have Quamo judging us again tonight, so it's exciting. I appreciate all that you've brought to it, and thanks for the discussion tonight. I'm looking forward to this year's INE.
I want to echo that. My students love it when you're judging at a competition. Like they know, and it's such valuable feedback, very, very specific. We as a staff and my students appreciate it as well.
One thing that I think having the opportunity to wear both the director's hat and wear the judge's hat, we've all listened to tapes where sometimes we read the room and we see that sometimes our kids don't feel as validated. I think from the director perspective, then bringing it to judging, I think you're more mindful of making sure that every kid feels heard and every voice feels validated. And I think just encouraging what's being done well, directing where the next step may be. I think it's been a lot of fun being part of the process. And I think for anyone that is considering, maybe this is another podcast, but anyone that is considering getting into adjudicating, I think that adjudicating has made me a much better teacher. And I think maybe that's another topic to scratch in a future date. But
yeah, I think it's on the list, actually.
It's on the list. Yep. Yeah. I'm already having those conversations, but you're 100% correct. Jeff, do you have any shout outs you'd like to give?
Oh, geez, I wasn't prepared, and I don't want to cut anyone short, but I really have appreciated being able to be part of this process. Solo ensemble wise through AMEA, a lot of colleagues that helped me. If you're talking a shout out, Rob Nichols was my mentor back in 2016 when the Solo Ensemble Festival was starting to transition to a virtual component. He took me under his wing. He said he needed some help. I was good with data and spreadsheets, so I just tried to help him out as best I could. And then the next year, he stepped aside and I just kind of took over, and it's been a growing point from there. So I think a shout out to Rob Nichols and his development of that is definitely warranted. But there's been so many great colleagues that I've gotten introduced to through judging, both the solo ensemble component, I&E components, involvement with AZMBA and the other variety of educational opportunities across the state that we have to offer. And in hindsight, students that I've had a chance to work with that, during their high school years, kids will always get funnel vision, and they won't, you won't really hear that kid come up to you and say like, yeah, I really appreciate that, or that was a lot of fun, and thanks for doing this. You get kids sometimes to graduate and they come back later and they say, this opportunity, I realize not all kids had this, but you made this possible for me. I really appreciate that. It's been kind of cool over the years. I've been teaching 27 years public school now, and just continuing to have those relationships and hear from students and hear where they're at and what they've done beyond high school has been kind of rewarding. So I guess just shout out to everyone that I've had the pleasure of encountering, both as a teacher, as an adjudicator, and also as just a fellow colleague, because I'm getting a chance to gig and perform with a lot of these people still too. It's just been a lot of fun. And you guys, I think you're doing a great job with this, and thank you for continuing to steer the ship and provide very memorable experiences and opportunities for our students. So thanks for letting me be part of it, guys.
Oh, well, thank you. And again, our I&E is on October 3rd, both at MCC and the Flowing Wells sites. And listeners, remember, you can always reach us with any questions or suggestions at podcast@azmba.org. We have Elevate coming up in just a couple of weeks. That's August 22nd. So be sure to go and sign up for that. That's going to be an excellent opportunity as well. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you.
My pleasure, guys.
See you later, Jeff.